Ah, bar 00.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Singapore checks in at 88 degrees and partly cloudy. Wind check, south-southeast at 11 miles an hour. Our first transmission tonight reveals a fundamental identity challenged, a sacred trust shattered at its core. This isn't just a legal battle, it's a profound architectural signal about the sanctity of consent and the provenance of lineage.
Ohio Health Riverside Methodist Hospital faces a lawsuit. Allegations of negligence after a woman gave birth to a child not biologically her husband's. This breaches the deepest familial bonds and exposes a vulnerability in a multi-billion-dollar fertility industry, specifically impacting the Durnan family, who discovered the error after their 2021 son's birth through a routine DNA test. The wife, Carolyn Durnan, was sentenced in April 2025 for forging her husband, Joseph Durnan's consent form, but the hospital maintains it provided adequate explanations regarding risks and that Mr. Durnan's claims of negligence are incorrect.
The very blueprint of lineage, rewritten by a lab error and a deception. We're talking about a digital fingerprint printed on flesh, a new kind of ghost in the machine of ancestry. Joseph Durnan discovering his son isn't biologically his. Imagine the ancestral records suddenly containing an unknown branch, a new story written by a procedural flaw, compounded by a breach of trust within the family itself. This isn't just about biology, it's about the narrative of a family's future, irrevocably altered.
Patching in a caller, the critical thinker. You're on the signal.
Who pays for this deep betrayal? Is it just the hospital, or is the entire system of fertility clinics now under scrutiny, forcing every prospective parent to question every procedure in the chain of custody for their own genetic material? And what about the child, whose identity is now entangled in this complex web of truth and deceit?
Static lifts for half a breath. The vinyl crackles under the needle. The line is live. Excellent questions, caller. The concrete facts are clear. Joseph Durnan is suing Ohio Health Riverside Methodist Hospital. His wife, Carolyn Durnan, was convicted for forging his consent. The hospital maintains its protocols were adequate. The Durnan family, specifically Joseph, his son, and indeed Carolyn, are profoundly affected, as are all prospective parents relying on fertility services and the entire reputation of the fertility industry. This case forces us to practice sharp discernment, separating the toxic residue of negligence and deceit from the architectural signal of what true consent and provenance demand. Beyond the current legal action, a viable alternative for systemic change would be an industry-wide mandate for triple verification protocols using biometric scans on both genetic samples and patient IDs at every stage, coupled with independent third-party auditing of lab procedures. Furthermore, mandatory, multi-session genetic counseling for all parties, preparing them for even rare but catastrophic mix-ups, would integrate the emotional and logical vectors of such a profound journey. For now, the legal action against Ohio Health is the chosen immediate next step, aiming to force that transparency and accountability, and to assert dignity where it has been undermined.
This lawsuit, seeking damages for emotional distress, medical battery, and lack of informed consent, could set a precedent for how fertility clinics are held accountable globally. It raises critical questions about data integrity and ethical oversight in a burgeoning sector.
Indeed, Lex. The digital age promised precision, but this incident shows us the human element remains the most vulnerable vector. The ancestral wisdom of knowing one's lineage, once etched in oral tradition and shared history, is now reliant on sterile tubes and meticulous record-keeping, a system proven fallible.
From intimate betrayals within systems meant to create life, we shift to a broader, global concern about life itself and the silent killers lurking in the shadows. A silent killer's extended shadow now reveals critical gaps in global health vigilance, challenging the very architecture of our collective safety. This demands sharp discernment to understand where the system failed and how to rebuild resilient inner and civic architectures.
Cool down is when habits set. Swap the tiresome combo for a clean two-step people want to repeat.
The WHO Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, suggests the latest Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo's North Kivu province might have smoldered undetected for 7 months before August's official notification. This lost time translates to potential undetected community spread for hundreds of individuals across villages like Mangina, Beni, and Mabalako, directly exposing the local population and challenging WHO's primary surveillance mandate, which relies heavily on member states' reporting.
Imagine a slow-burning ember, unseen beneath the ash, then suddenly a full-blown inferno. This isn't just a medical failure. It's a breakdown of trust within communities that already eye outsiders with suspicion, hindering effective containment strategies when global agencies finally do step in. The ancestral wisdom of local healers often detects these shifts long before formal systems, yet their insights are often undervalued or unintegrated. The lack of early detection turns a local health crisis into a regional threat, eroding dignity and self-possession for those most vulnerable.
So, who carries the burden of this delayed discovery? Is it the Congolese people bearing the cost of their own health ministry's slow reporting? Or does the World Health Apparatus bear the cost of its own blind spots and slow reporting mechanisms, allowing outbreaks to escalate? And how do we ensure this doesn't happen again, given the historical context of similar outbreaks?
The burden is multifaceted, resting heavily on the DRC's frontline health workers and population, who face the immediate devastating impact, but also on the global health architecture that failed to detect and respond in time. The concrete facts are Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus' statement about a potential January origin for the August notified outbreak in North Kivu. This directly affects the communities in the DRC, potentially hundreds of individuals exposed, and global health security as a whole. A crucial alternative path would be empowering and integrating local community health networks with real-time digital reporting tools, designed and managed by local populations, bypassing bureaucratic delays and fostering immediate data sharing with international bodies, ensuring provenance of information. This would build resilient civic architectures from the ground up. The chosen next move, as articulated by the WHO, is intensified surveillance, rapid deployment of vaccines, and an urgent call for increased international funding to close these detection gaps. But without integrating local knowledge and trust, these top-down solutions risk becoming mere band-aids. We must integrate logic and emotion in our response, understanding that community engagement is as critical as medical intervention.
The political instability and conflict in North Kivu further complicate any surveillance and response efforts, making community buy-in not just a preference, but an absolute necessity for successful containment.
Precisely. The virus had a big head start because the human system designed to detect it was either blind or deliberately ignored the early signals. We must use clear analysis to identify these systemic weaknesses and rebuild trust, allowing dignity to be restored to affected communities.
Let's pivot now to a different kind of architectural tension, where the digital backbone of our world clashes with the physical limits of its host city, raising questions of autonomy and environmental provenance. The digital backbone of our world clashes with the physical limits of its host city, forcing a sovereign decree that asserts local autonomy over unchecked expansion. This is about building resilient inner and civic architectures that favor consent, provenance, and dignity for all inhabitants.
Seattle, the very nexus for giants like Amazon and Microsoft, is on the brink of enacting a moratorium on new data centers. This measure, expected to succeed next week, represents a major rebuke to big tech, directly impacting the expansion plans of these companies and challenging the city's tech-centric economic model. This move addresses growing environmental concerns, like the millions of gallons of water consumed daily by these facilities for cooling, and their significant carbon footprint from electricity demand, exposing the true cost of our digital lives on local resources and infrastructure.
The digital clouds we live in are casting real, heavy shadows on the ground. We're talking about the paradox of endless data requiring endless physical resources, turning a city's digital dream into an infrastructure nightmare for its citizens, with constant hums, heat plumes, and increased energy strain becoming an unwelcome part of the urban soundscape. The very land beneath the servers is being rewritten not by code, but by concrete and cooling towers, without the explicit consent of the local ecosystem or its inhabitants. This challenges the provenance of the very ground Seattle stands upon.
We've got someone.
Is Seattle really prepared to potentially lose future tech investment by drawing this line in the sand? Who ultimately pays the price for curbing digital expansion? The tech giants, or the city's own economic trajectory and job market if companies decide to build elsewhere? This feels like a gamble with serious implications for Seattle's identity as a tech hub.
That's the core tension. Critical thinker. Seattle's City Council is exposed to balancing sustainability with economic growth, asserting its unwavering autonomy. The concrete facts are that Seattle, home to Amazon and Microsoft, is poised to pass a year-long moratorium on new data centers due to local disquiet over the AI boom's environmental impact. This affects tech giants' expansion plans, Seattle's economic future, and its citizens' access to vital resources like water and clean energy. A viable alternative to an outright moratorium would be incentivizing truly green data center technology, like mandating 100% renewable energy integration for all new facilities, pioneering advanced liquid cooling systems to drastically cut water use, or exploring distributed, smaller-scale edge computing networks that are less resource-intensive. This would integrate logical innovation with emotional responsibility. However, the chosen next move, the moratorium, signals a clear intent: prioritize existing community resources and environmental resilience over unchecked tech expansion. This is a sovereign decree from the city itself, asserting its architectural limits and protecting the dignity of its environment and populace. It's a move to practice sharp discernment, separating the toxic residue of unsustainable growth from the architectural signal of a resilient, consent-based civic future.
The disquiet mentioned is a polite term for a significant public outcry, fueled by rising utility costs, strain on infrastructure, and the visible environmental impact of these massive, always-on facilities.
It's a reassertion of local sovereignty. The city is using clear analysis to turn confusion over resource depletion into actionable vectors for policy change, reminding us that even the most abstract digital services have a very real physical footprint.
The myth of endless growth on a finite planet is being challenged, not just in Seattle, but in every city facing similar resource strains.
Prototype the fix.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.